The massive chamber of the Galactic Council stretched out like a metal forest, with tall pillars reaching up to a ceiling that seemed to touch the stars themselves. Captain Jake Morrison sat in the human section, a small area compared to the grand spaces given to the older races. His uniform felt heavy on his shoulders as he watched the alien beings around him discuss the fate of an entire species. The Cathara representative stood in the center of the chamber. Elder Vexthara was tall and made of what looked like living crystal, with light flowing through her body in patterns that showed her emotions. Right now, those patterns were dim and desperate. She had been speaking for over an hour, but Jake could see that most of the council members were not really listening anymore. "Please," Elder Vexthara said, her voice like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "My people have kept the knowledge of the galaxy safe for over 10,000 years. We have never asked for help before, but now the void blight consumes our world. In 3 months, nothing will remain." High Counselor Zephan of the Altarian Empire leaned back in his floating chair. His blue skin had silver markings that showed his high rank. "Elder Vexthara, we understand your situation, but the Council must think about what is best for all species. The void blight cannot be stopped. We have seen it destroy 12 worlds already. That is exactly why we must contain it," said Counselor Nexith from the machine race called the Construct. Her metal face showed no emotion as she spoke. "If we allow the Cathara to leave their world, they might spread the blight to other systems." Jake felt his anger rising. He had served as a Marine for 15 years before becoming Earth's representative to the Council. He had seen good people die while others stood by and did nothing. This felt the same. Commander Lisa Hayes sat next to Jake. She was his military advisor and had been watching the other council members carefully. She leaned over and whispered, "They made their decision before this meeting even started." Jake looked around the chamber. The representatives from the 12 major civilizations all had the same look on their faces. They had already decided to let the Cathara die. "The Cathara offer us nothing," said Counselor Varek from the Stellar Dominion. His 4 arms moved as he spoke, showing his irritation. "They have no armies, no resources we need, no technology that benefits the greater galaxy. They are simply record keepers." "They are people," Jake said, standing up. His voice carried across the chamber, causing several aliens to turn and look at him with surprise. High Counselor Zephan's silver markings flashed brighter. "Captain Morrison, you were not given permission to speak." "I am the representative of humanity," Jake replied. "That gives me the right to speak for my species." "Humanity," Zephan said with what might have been a laugh. "The youngest race in the Council. You have been part of galactic civilization for barely 50 years. What could you possibly understand about decisions that affect billions of lives?" Jake walked down from the human section toward the center of the chamber. Lisa started to follow, but he held up a hand to stop her. "I understand that you are all cowards." The chamber erupted in angry sounds from a dozen different species. Zephan rose from his chair, his skin now bright with rage. "How dare you insult this council?" "I am not insulting the council," Jake said calmly. "I am stating a fact. The Cathara have preserved the history and knowledge of every race in this chamber. They saved your stories, your science, your culture. Now they need help, and you abandon them because they cannot build warships or mine asteroids for you." Elder Vexthara's crystal form began to glow brighter. Hope was returning to her patterns. "The decision is practical," said Counselor Nexith. "Resources are limited. We must choose carefully where to spend them." "Resources," Jake repeated. He looked around at the rich decorations of the chamber, at the expensive technology that let each species breathe their own air and speak their own language. This chamber cost more to build than it would take to relocate the entire Cathara population. "Even if we wanted to help," Zephan said, "where would they go? No world can support their crystal-based biology. They need specific mineral conditions that exist only on their homeworld." "Earth can support them," Jake said. The chamber fell silent. Even the background hum of the translation system seemed to stop. Lisa stood up quickly. Jake, you cannot make that decision without approval from Earth. I just did, Jake replied, not taking his eyes off Zephan. Impossible, Varek said. Your world lacks the proper mineral composition. The Cathara would die within years. Then we will change our world to help them live, Jake said. We will dig new mines, build new habitats, do whatever it takes. Zephan's markings were now pulsing. With disbelief. You would risk your entire planet for a dying race? This is madness. This is humanity, Jake said. We do not abandon people because it is inconvenient to help them. Elder Vexthara moved closer to Jake. Her light patterns were now bright with something Jake had not seen before, wonder. The vote will proceed, Zephan announced. All in favor of providing sanctuary to the Cathara people? Jake raised his hand. He was the only one. All opposed? 11 hands, claws, and tentacles rose into the air. The motion fails, Zephan said. With satisfaction, the Cathara will remain on their world. May their passing be swift? No, Jake said. Humanity withdraws from this vote. We will act alone. If you take the Cathara against Council wishes, Zephan warned, Earth will be expelled from the Galactic Council. You will lose all trade agreements, all protection, all rights as a galactic civilization. Jake looked at Elder Vexthara then, back at Zephan. Some things are more important than membership in your club. He turned and walked toward the exit. Lisa hurried to catch up with him. Jake, wait, she said when they reached the corridor outside. Do you realize what you just did? Earth's government will never approve this. Jake stopped and looked back at the chamber doors. Through the transparent metal, he could see Elder Vexthara still standing in the center, her crystal form now glowing with the brightest patterns he had ever seen from her. Then I guess we better make sure we succeed, he said. Get me a secure channel to Earth. We have 3 months to save an entire civilization. Lisa shook her head that activated her communication device. You know this is crazy, right? Probably, Jake admitted. But it is also right, and sometimes that is enough. The UES horizon cut through the darkness of space like a silver knife. The ship had been built to carry human colonists to new worlds, but now it raced toward the dying planet of Cathara Prime with a very different mission. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge, watching the stars streak past as the ship pushed its engines beyond safe limits. How long until we reach Cathara Prime? Jake asked. Lieutenant Ben Carter checked his navigation display. The young officer had been working without sleep for 2 days straight. 18 hours at current speed, sir. But Chief Rodriguez says the engines cannot take much more stress. They will have to, Jake said. Every minute we delay means more Cathara die. Dr. Amy Chun entered the bridge carrying a datapad filled with notes. She was the ship's lead scientist and had been studying everything humanity knew about the Cathara people. Captain, I need to talk to you about the refugees we are picking up. Jake turned to face her. Amy looked tired but determined. What is it, Doctor? The Cathara are not like any life form we have encountered before, Amy said. Their bodies are made of living crystal that needs specific minerals to survive. I'm not sure our ship can support them for the journey back to Earth. We will make it work, Jake said firmly. Chief Rodriguez is already modifying the cargo bays. Chief Engineer Sam Rodriguez came up from the lower decks at that moment. His uniform was covered in grease and his hands were dirty from working on the ship's systems. Captain, we have a problem. The mineral processors I installed are working, but they are using too much power. If we keep this up, life support might fail. Jake felt the weight of command pressing down on him. 50,000 Cathara lives depended on his decisions. Can you reroute power from other systems? I already have, Sam said. Weapons are offline, artificial gravity is reduced, and half the crew quarters are without heat. I cannot do more without risking the main reactor. Sir, Ben called from his station. I am getting a message from Cathara Prime. It is from Master Seer Kylanth. Put it on screen, Jake ordered. The main display flickered to life, showing an ancient Cathara whose crystal body was dim with age. The light patterns flowing through him were weak but steady. When he spoke, his voice sounded like distant thunder. Captain Morrison of Earth, I am Kylanth, keeper of the deep archives. I speak for all Cathara who remain. We have heard of your offer of sanctuary. Many of my people believe it is too late for hope. It is never too late, Jake replied. We are coming to get you. The void blight spreads quickly now, Kylanth said. It has consumed the eastern continents and moves toward our last cities. We have perhaps 2 days before everything is lost. Amy stepped forward. Master Kylanth, I am Dr. Chun. I have been studying your people's biology. Can you tell me what the voided blight actually is? The old Kithara's patterns shifted to something that looked like fear. It is darkness given form, Doctor. It consumes not just matter, but the very structure that holds atoms together. Where it passes, nothing remains. Not even empty space. That is impossible, Sam said. Matter cannot just disappear. The blight does not make matter disappear. Kylanth explained. It changes it into something else. Something that exists in dimensions we cannot see. Our ancestors fought this plague long ago, but the knowledge of how to stop it was lost. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. Are you saying this has happened before? Many times across many worlds, Kylanth said. The void blight appears, consumes everything, then vanishes for thousands of years before returning somewhere else. We are simply the latest victims. The transmission began to break up as interference filled the signal. Kylanth's image flickered. Master Kylanth, are you still there? Amy called. Yes, but not for long. The blight has reached our communication centers. Captain Morrison, I must tell you something important. The knowledge we carry is not just history. We are the living memory of the galaxy. If we die, secrets that could save billions will be lost forever. What kind of secrets? Jake asked. The locations of hidden worlds, the true names of ancient technologies, the warnings left by races that came before us. We have kept these things safe for 10,000 years, waiting for the time when they would be needed again. The transmission cut out completely. Ben tried to re-establish contact but got only static. How much longer? Jake asked. 16 hours. Ben replied that Amy was studying her datapad with new urgency. Captain, if the Cathara really are living libraries, then saving them is even more important than we thought. They might have information about the void blight itself. Or they might bring it with them, Sam said quietly. If this thing can consume anything, what happens when we bring refugees to Earth? Jake had been thinking the same thing, but he pushed the fear aside. We deal with that problem when we come to it. Right now, our job is to save as many lives as we can. Sir, Ben called from his station, I am detecting something strange. There's an energy signature following us. Following us? Jake moved to look at Ben's screen. What kind of signature? I am not sure. It is like nothing in our databases. But it is definitely moving in our direction. Amy's face went pale, the void blight. It must be spreading through space itself. How is that possible? Sam demanded. I do not know, Amy admitted. But if it can consume planets, maybe it can travel between stars too. Jake made a decision that would haunt him for the rest of his life. Increase speed. Push the engines past the red line if you have to. Sir, that could destroy the ship, Sam warned. If we do not reach the Cathara in time, the ship will not matter anyway, Jake replied. We came here to save lives. I will not fail because I was afraid to take risks. The horizon leaped forward as its engines roared with dangerous power. Behind them, invisible to their sensors but growing stronger every hour, something dark and hungry followed their trail through the stars. The race to save the Cathara had become a race to save themselves as well. President Helen Ross stood at the window of her office, watching the night sky over Washington. Somewhere up there, the UES horizon was racing toward Earth with 50,000 alien refugees and a cosmic plague that could destroy everything. The phone calls had not stopped for 3 days. Madam President, her chief of staff said as he entered the room. The Joint Chiefs are here for the emergency meeting. Helen turned away from the window. She had been president for 6 years, but nothing had prepared her for this decision. Send them in. General Ryan Davis led the group of military commanders into the office. His face was grim as he sat down across from Helen's desk. "Madam President, we need to talk about the Horizon situation." "I am listening," Helen said. "Our deep space monitors have confirmed Captain Morrison's report," General Davis said. "The void blight is real, and it is following the horizon toward Earth. Our moon will be the first thing it reaches." Dr. Marcus Webb, the government's top scientist, opened his briefcase and pulled out a thick folder. "We have been studying the data from Kithara Prime. The void blight is unlike anything we have ever seen. It does not just destroy matter. It breaks down the basic forces that hold atoms together." "Can we stop it?" Helen asked. "We do not know," Dr. Webb admitted. "The Kithara refugees might have the answer, but they are still 3 days away from Earth." Helen's secretary knocked on the door. "Madam President, you have calls from the Prime Ministers of Britain, France, and Japan. They want to know what you plan to do about the alien refugees." "Tell them I will call them back," Helen said. She looked at General Davis. "What are our options?" "We could order the Horizon to stay away from Earth," General Davis said. "Keep the refugees in space until we find a solution to the void blight." "For how long?" Helen asked. "The Horizon is not equipped for a long-term mission. Those people would die." "Better than risking 8 billion human lives," General Davis replied. Dr. Webb shook his head. "General, you are missing the point. The Kithara might be our only hope of stopping this plague. If we abandon them, we lose any chance of finding a cure." Helen's phone rang. She answered it and listened for a moment before hanging up. That was the governor of California. "Panic buying has emptied every store in Los Angeles. People are trying to leave the cities." "The news leaked?" General Davis asked. "Someone in the Galactic Council told the media," Helen said. "Now the whole world knows about the void blight." Maya Singh, who ran the Global Refugee Agency, had been quiet until now. She was a small woman with kind eyes who had spent her career helping displaced people. "Madam President, I have been working on plans to house the Kithara refugees. We have identified several locations where we can build temporary shelters." "Where?" Helen asked. "The Mojave Desert, parts of Australia, some areas in Canada," Maya said. "Places with the right mineral conditions and low human population." "You are talking about permanent settlements," General Davis said. "These aliens would be living on Earth forever." "Would that be so bad?" Maya asked. "Captain Morrison's reports say the Kithara have knowledge that could help all of humanity." Helen's phone rang again. This time it was her military advisor at NORAD. She listened for a long moment, her face growing pale. "What is it?" General Davis asked when she hung up. "The void blight just consumed our lunar research station," Helen said. 37 people were killed instantly. "The thing is moving faster than we thought." Dr. Webb stood up quickly. "How long until it reaches Earth?" 18 hours, Helen replied. The room fell silent. Everyone understood what this meant. The Horizon would arrive in 12 hours with the refugees, but the void blight would reach Earth 6 hours later. "We need to evacuate the major cities," General Davis said. "Get people underground or away from the coasts." "Evacuate to where?" Helen asked. "If this thing can destroy the moon, nowhere on Earth is safe," Maya leaned forward. "Unless the Kithara really do have the answer. Captain Morrison said they fought this plague before. 10,000 years ago," Dr. Webb said. "And they lost. That is why their world is dying." Helen walked back to the window. In the distance, she could see the lights of the city where millions of people lived their normal lives, not knowing that death was racing toward them from space. "Madam President," General Davis said, "we need a decision. Do we let the Horizon dock, or do we order them to stay away?" Helen thought about Captain Morrison, a man she had never met who had risked everything to save strangers. She thought about the Kithara, an ancient people facing extinction. She thought about the 8 billion humans who trusted her to keep them safe. "Dr. Webb," she said without turning around, "if the Kithara really have this knowledge, how long would it take them to share it with us?" "I do not know," Dr. Webb said. Their method of storing information is completely different from ours. It could take days or weeks to translate. We do not have weeks, General Davis said. We have hours. Helen turned back to face the room. Maya, I want every refugee facility in North America ready to receive the Cathara, Dr. Webb. I want every scientist we have working on the voided blight. Problem. General Davis, prepare the military for evacuation procedures, but do not start them yet. And the horizon? General Davis asked. Captain Morrison and his crew risked their lives to save those refugees, Helen said. I will not abandon them now. The horizon will dock at Earth Station 1 in 12 hours. Madam President, Dr. Webb said quietly, what if we are wrong? What if the Cathara cannot help us stop the void blight? Helen looked out the window one last time at the peaceful city below. Then we will face the end together, knowing we tried to do what was right. She sat down at her desk and began making phone calls. There were 8 billion people to warn, 50,000 refugees to welcome, and perhaps only hours left to save the world. But Helen Ross had made her choice, and she would see it through to the end. Deep beneath the Colorado mountains, Dr. Lucy Park stared at the crystal structure that filled the entire underground chamber. The Cathara had arrived on Earth 6 hours ago, and their most precious cargo was not their people, but this massive archive that held 10,000 years of galactic history. It is beautiful, Lucy whispered as patterns of light flowed through the crystal walls like rivers of fire. Prime Archive Zindara stood beside her, her crystal body glowing with urgent patterns. She was younger than the other Cathara elders, but carried the weight of her entire civilization's knowledge. Dr. Park, we must hurry. The void blight will reach Earth in 2 hours. Agent Noah Black watched from the entrance of the chamber. He was a government intelligence officer who had been assigned to monitor the alien refugees. His job was to make sure Earth's secrets stayed safe, but now he found himself hoping the aliens had secrets that could save them all. How does this thing work? Lucy asked, reaching toward the crystal surface. Do not touch it directly, Zindara warned. The archive responds to thought and emotion. If you are not prepared, it could overwhelm your mind. General Peter Stone entered the chamber with a team of soldiers. He was a hard man who had fought in 3 wars and never backed down from a fight. But the void blight was not an enemy he could shoot or bomb. Prime Archive, General Stone said. Our satellites show the blight has consumed half the moon. We need answers now. Zindara's light patterns shifted to something that looked like deep sadness. General, the knowledge you seek is locked in the deepest part of the archive. It was hidden there by my ancestors for good reason. What reason? Noah asked, stepping closer. Because the truth about the void blight is too terrible for most minds to accept, Zindara replied. Lucy felt a chill run down her spine. What truth? Zindara moved to the center of the chamber and placed her crystal hands on the archive. The entire structure began to glow brighter, and Lucy could hear something like singing coming from deep within the crystal. The void blight is not a natural plague, Zindara said. It was created as a weapon by a race called the Devourers. They lived in this galaxy long before any of our civilizations existed. A weapon? General Stone asked. What kind of weapon consumes entire planets? The ultimate weapon, Zindara replied. The Devourers believed that the only way to achieve perfect peace was to remove all life from the universe. The void blight was their tool to accomplish this goal. The crystal archive pulsed with red light, and suddenly the chamber filled with images. Lucy saw ancient worlds filled with strange creatures, massive cities that reached to the stars, and then the arrival of the void blight. Everything turned to nothing in moments. My God, Lucy breathed. How many worlds did they destroy? Thousands, Zindara said. The Devourers consumed entire star systems before they were stopped. Stopped by who? Noah demanded. By an alliance of the earliest races in the galaxy, Zen_Dara explained. My people, the Cathara, were part of that alliance. We developed a weapon that could fight the void blight. General Stone leaned forward. What weapon? Do you still have it? Zindara's patterns dimmed. The weapon was not a machine or a bomb. It was something much more dangerous. A fusion of living minds that could generate energy patterns to cancel out the blight. Mind fusion? Lucy asked, "How is that possible?" "Different species think in different ways," Zen_Dara said. "When those different thought patterns are combined, they create something new. Something the void blight cannot consume." The archive pulsed again, and new images appeared. Lucy saw Cathara warriors standing next to alien beings she had never seen before. Their minds were connected by streams of light, and together they generated a wave of energy that pushed back the darkness of the void blight. "It worked," Noah said in amazement. "Yes," Zindara replied. "But the cost was terrible. Every being who participated in the fusion died. Their minds were burned out by the energy they generated." General Stone's face hardened. "How many people are we talking about?" "For a planet the size of Earth, we would need at least 1,000 volunteers," Zindara said. "Half Cathara, half human. The fusion of crystal and organic thought is necessary to create the right frequency." Lucy felt sick. 1,000 people would have to die to save the world? "Not just die," Zindara corrected. "They would cease to exist as individuals. Their consciousness would merge into something entirely new." The chamber fell silent except for the singing of the crystal archive. Everyone understood what this meant. To save Earth, 1,000 people would have to sacrifice not just their lives, but their very souls. "There has to be another way," Lucy sighed. "There is not," Zindara replied sadly. "My ancestors searched for 10,000 years. This is the only weapon that can stop the void blight." General Stone activated his radio. "This is Stone. Get me President Ross immediately." While they waited for the connection, Noah walked closer to the archive. "Prime Archive, why did your people keep this knowledge secret?" The Galactic Council could have been preparing for the Blight's return. Zindara's patterns shifted to anger. "We tried to warn them. We sent messages to every world, every civilization, but they did not want to hear about ancient weapons that required sacrifice. They preferred to pretend the danger did not exist. So they abandoned you when the Blight returned to your world," Lucy said. "Yes, they called us fools for keeping dangerous knowledge. They said we deserved our fate for meddling with forces beyond our understanding." General Stone's radio crackled to life. "Mr. President, we have found the solution to the void blight problem, but you are not going to like it." Lucy looked at the crystal archive, still singing its ancient songs of war and sacrifice. Somewhere above them, the void blight was eating its way through space toward Earth. In less than 2 hours, it would arrive, and the only way to stop it was for 1,000 brave souls to give up everything they were, everything they could ever be, to become something new and powerful enough to fight the darkness. The question was, would they find 1,000 people willing to make that sacrifice? Admiral Kate Murphy stood on the bridge of Earth Station 1, watching dozens of ships approach through the darkness of space. They were not human ships. The Galactic Council had sent a fleet to ensure that Earth and its new alien refugees would never threaten the galaxy again. "Admiral," her communications officer called, "we are receiving a transmission from the lead Altarian vessel." "Put it through," Kate ordered. High Counselor Zephin's blue face appeared on the main screen. His silver markings were bright with anger. "Admiral Murphy, by order of the Galactic Council, you will surrender the Shithara refugees immediately. Earth will then be placed under permanent quarantine." "The refugees are under Earth's protection," Kate replied calmly. "You have no authority here. We have 12 warships," Zephin said. "What do you have?" Kate looked around her bridge at the crew members who had volunteered to stay and fight. Most of Earth's fleet had been evacuated when the Void Blight was detected. Only 3 ships remained to defend the station. "We have something you do not understand," Kate said. "We have people willing to die for what they believe in." Down on Earth's surface, Dr. Alex Turner sat in a medical chair surrounded by Cathara crystal formations. He was one of the first humans to volunteer for the mind fusion procedure. The Kithara scientist Elder Morthic stood beside him, ready to begin the process that would merge their consciousness forever. "Are you sure about this, Alex?" Dr. Lucy Park asked. She had been working with the volunteers for the past hour, explaining what would happen to them. Alex nodded. He was a young physicist who had spent his life studying the stars. "If this is the only way to save Earth, then this is what I have to do." Elder Morthic's crystal body pulsed with gentle light. "Dr. Turner, when our minds join, you will cease to be human and I will cease to be Kithara. We will become something new." "I understand," Alex said. "Let's begin." Across the world, similar scenes were taking place in hidden facilities. Volunteers from both species were preparing to give up their individual existence to create the weapon that could stop the Void Blight. So far, they had found 800 people willing to make the sacrifice. They needed 1,000. Captain Rick Foster piloted his fighter through the edge of Earth's atmosphere. His job was to keep the Galactic Council ships away from the planet long enough for the fusion procedure to work. His small fighter was no match for alien warships, but he was not alone. "Red Squadron, this is Foster," he said into his radio. "Remember, we are not trying to win this fight. We just need to buy time." "Copy that, Red Leader," came the reply from his wingman. "How long do we need to hold them?" Rick checked his scanner. The Void Blight was now consuming the outer edge of Earth's atmosphere. 30 minutes. Then it will not matter what the Council does to us. In the underground facility, the mind fusion process had begun. Alex felt his thoughts mixing with Elder Morthic's crystal consciousness. It was like being caught in a storm of light and sound. His human memories blended with 10,000 years of Kithara history. "I can feel it working," Lucy said, watching the energy readings spike on her instruments. "The fusion is creating exactly the frequency we need." But 800 fused minds were not enough. The energy field they generated was strong, but it could not cover the entire planet. The Void Blight continued to advance, eating through the upper atmosphere like acid through paper. "We need more volunteers," General Stone said, watching the readings. 200 more, or this will not work." "There are no more volunteers," Lucy replied. "We asked everyone. The rest are too afraid." Above them, Admiral Murphy's small fleet engaged the Council warships. The human ships were outgunned and outnumbered, but they fought with desperate courage. Captain Foster's fighter squadron darted between the massive alien vessels, targeting their weapons and engines. "Admiral," Foster's voice crackled over the radio, "I am reading massive energy spikes from the planet's surface. Whatever they are doing down there, it is big." Kate watched her tactical display as 2 of her ships were destroyed by Council fire. "Keep fighting, Captain. Give them every second you can." In the fusion chamber, something unexpected happened. Elder Morthic and Alex had completed their merger, becoming a being of pure energy and thought. But instead of staying in the chamber, their new consciousness reached out to the other volunteers. "What is happening?" Lucy asked as her instruments went wild. The 800 fused beings were connecting to each other, creating a network of linked minds that spanned the entire planet. Their combined consciousness was far more powerful than anyone had expected, but it was still not enough. To stop the Void Blight. High above, Zephin's warships broke through the human defense line. "Prepare to land troops on Earth Station 1, he ordered. "We will take the Kithara by force if necessary." Then something changed. The energy readings from Earth's surface suddenly doubled, then tripled. Lucy stared at her instruments in amazement. "That is impossible," she said. "Where is this extra power coming from?" The answer came from an unexpected source. Across Earth, ordinary people who had been too afraid to volunteer were suddenly stepping forward. They could feel the merged consciousness calling to them, showing them what needed to be done. A farmer in Kansas walked into a local Kithara settlement and asked to join the fusion. A teacher in Tokyo did the same. Thousands of people who had never seen an alien before suddenly understood that the fate of all life depended on their choice. "The network is growing," Lucy said in wonder. "People are volunteering themselves." Within minutes, the number of fused beings reached the critical 1,000. Then it kept growing. 2,000, 3,000, 5,000. The energy field generated by the merged human Kithara consciousness spread across Earth like a wave of pure light. When it met the advancing edge of the void blight, something miraculous happened. The darkness stopped. Then it began to retreat. Zephyr watched from his flagship as the void blight was pushed back from Earth, consumed by the brilliant energy field that now surrounded the planet. "This is impossible," he whispered. Admiral Murphy smiled as she watched. "The Council ships begin to withdraw." "You never understood us at all," she said. 1 year after the Void Blight was defeated, Ambassador Tony Garcia walked through the halls of the new Galactic Council building on Earth. The old council chambers on Nexus Prime had been abandoned after half the member worlds requested that future meetings be held on humanity's homeworld. Tony paused at a window overlooking the gardens where human children played alongside young Kithara. The crystal beings had learned to dim their light so they would not hurt human eyes, while the children had learned to communicate using the simple light patterns that meant friendship and joy. "Ambassador Garcia," a voice called behind him. Tony turned to see Councillor Rithara approaching. She was the first Kithara ever elected to serve on the Galactic Council, and her crystal body glowed with the warm patterns that meant contentment. "Counselor," Tony said with a smile, "are you ready for today's session?" "As ready as anyone can be," Rithara replied. "The Zephyrian delegation arrived this morning. They seemed nervous." Tony was not surprised. The Zephyrians had been one of the loudest voices calling for Earth's punishment after the Void Blight incident. Now they were here asking for help with their own problems. Dr. Emma Brooks entered the corridor carrying a briefcase full of research notes. She had been studying the Merged Consciousness Network for months, trying to understand how humans and Kithara had been able to join their minds so completely. "Tony, Rithara," Emma said, nodding to both of them. "I have the latest report on the Consciousness Network." "The results are remarkable. What did you find?" Tony asked. "The 5,000 merged beings are not just alive," Emma explained. "They are thriving. Their combined consciousness can process information at speeds we never thought possible. They have already solved 3 major scientific problems that have puzzled us for decades." Rithara's patterns brightened. "And they are happy?" "More than happy," Emma said. "They describe their existence as pure joy. They have all the memories and experiences of their individual lives, but now they share them with thousands of others. They say it is like being part of a beautiful song that never ends." Captain Lisa Warren approached the group. She commanded the UES Unity, the first ship built using combined human and Kithara technology. The vessel could travel faster than any ship in the galaxy and was powered by a small version of the Consciousness Network. "Ambassador," Lisa said, "I have a message from the Helix Nebula. The Forgotten Ones are requesting sanctuary on Earth." Tony raised an eyebrow. "The Forgotten Ones?" "Another race that the Galactic Council abandoned," Lisa explained. "Their star is dying, and the other civilizations say it is too expensive to relocate them." Rithara made a sound like crystal bells ringing. It was the Kithara equivalent of laughter. "How familiar that sounds." "How many are we talking about?" Tony asked. "About 20,000, Lisa replied. "They are a peaceful species that lives in zero gravity. We could house them in the orbital habitats we built for the Kithara overflow population." Tony nodded. "Send word that Earth accepts their request for sanctuary. We will send ships to collect them next week." "Sir," Lisa said hesitantly, "that will make this the 4th refugee population we have accepted this year. Some people are starting to complain about the cost." "Let them complain," Tony said firmly. "Saving lives is never a waste of money." As they walked toward the council chambers, Tony thought about how much had changed. When humanity first joined the Galactic Council, they had been treated like foolish children who did not understand how the universe worked. Now they were the moral leaders of the galaxy, and every month brought new requests for help from species that the other civilizations had given up on. The council chamber was smaller than the old one, but it felt more welcoming. Representatives from 15 different species sat in a circle rather than the old hierarchy that had put the powerful races above the weak ones. At the center of the room stood a small crystal formation that connected them to the consciousness network, allowing the merged beings to participate in discussions. High Counselor Zephan entered the chamber looking uncomfortable. His once proud Altarian delegation had been reduced to 3 members after several worlds left their empire to join the Terra Cathara Alliance. Ambassador Garcia, Zephan said stiffly, we need to discuss the situation in the Outer Rim territories. I'm listening, Tony replied. 3 more systems have declared independence from the Altarian Empire, Zephan admitted. They say they want to join your alliance because you actually help people instead of just talking about it. Counselor Rythara's patterns shifted to something that looked like mild amusement. And you want us to convince them to stay with the Empire? We want to join the alliance ourselves, Zephan said quietly. The chamber fell silent. The proud Altarian Empire, which had once ruled a quarter of the galaxy, was asking to become part of an alliance led by the species they had once called naive children. What changed your mind? Tony asked. Zephan looked around the chamber at the representatives of species that had once been considered worthless or forgotten. We watched you save the Cathara when everyone else said it was impossible. We watched. You defeat the Void Blight through sacrifice instead of weapons. We watched you welcome 4 different refugee populations without asking for anything in return. He paused, his silver markings dimming with what might have been shame. We realized that we have been wrong about everything. Power is not about having the biggest fleet or the most resources. True power comes from being willing to help others, even when it costs you something. Tony stood up and walked to the center of the chamber. He placed his hand on the crystal formation and instantly felt the warm presence of the merged consciousness network. Thousands of human and Cathara minds touched his thoughts, sharing their wisdom and support. High Counselor Zephan, Tony said. The Terra Cathara Alliance welcomes all species that share our values, but you need to understand what joining us means. Tell me, Zephan said. It means putting the needs of others before your own comfort, Tony explained. It means sharing your resources with those who have less. It means never turning away from people who need help, even if they cannot give you anything in return. Zephan nodded slowly. We understand and we accept. Tony smiled and extended his hand. Then welcome to the Alliance, Counselor Zephan. Together we will build a galaxy where no one is forgotten. As the 2 leaders shook hands, the crystal formation pulsed with light, and Tony could feel the joy of the merged consciousness network flowing through the chamber. They had started by saving 1 dying race, and now they were changing the entire galaxy. Outside the chamber windows, human and alien children continued to play in the gardens, creating the first generation that would grow up knowing that the universe was a place where people helped each other instead of turning away. The galaxy had finally learned what humanity had always known, that true strength came not from power, but from compassion.